I was up till 4:30 doing a podcast with the guys from the Wizard Factory. Really great stuff, and I really enjoyed talking to them. It was great to talk to people younger people who are really pushing the stuff that I push on my channels. I'll put the link to the Wizard Factory below. Subscribe and wait for the podcast to come out and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Uh, Following on from the video I made yesterday on the the Greta Thunberg thing, the carbon mancy idea that went down very well on the Thomas Sheridan channel. I'll put the link below for that if you haven't seen. I'll just go over the Thomas Sheridan channel. I was thinking about this further. Yeah, there's always an alchemical, synchronistic aspect to all this stuff. Nothing that happens within the zeitgeist, within the whole, is ever an accident in terms of it always relates back to a symbolic or a meaningful aspect. Now, I was watching that video yesterday of Greta Thunberg after I made the video about carbon mancy at her address at the United Nations. It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. Absolutely disturbing. And to see that child acting and so full of hate and vitriol and being manipulated by by these evil power elite, whatever they are, and she stuck her tongue out at President Trump when he walked by. That is astounding. That is shocking to me, and that's the level that these people have sunk to. That's their, it doesn't matter who the president is. He's not committing genocide and things like that. He's just not in your gig. And I want to talk about the whole thing of carbon, right? It's carbon 12, which is one of the carbon elements of the carbon molecule, has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And many the Christians will go, "Mark of the beast," like that kind of Alex Jones Bible Belt stuff. "Mark of the beast," and it's just the devil, Antichrist is here, true carbon stuff. Well, and not being a moronic Christian who worships a rotting corpse on a stick, let me give you a polytheistic alchemical variation of that. Now, 666 in the book of Revelations directly refers to the Emperor Nero, who was one of the last pagan emperors of Rome, which is why he's been greatly vilified in so many ways. In the same way that Constantine, who was even much worse, was a bigger psychopath than any of them, the one who brought Christianity into the Roman Empire, is celebrated as a wonderful, great leader. So it was a propaganda war, a magic spell that was being put out there by the early Second Temple rabbinical Judaism offshoot fanatics that eventually became Christianity against him. The mark of the beast, his number is 666. That was Nero. Okay, now the Christians that would be going, carbon 12, 666, mark of the beast, Antichrist is here. I take a much more proactive, positive element to it. Well, I mean, not if you're a Christian, that it's the return. It's part of the return of paganism, because if you look at why is there a phobia about carbon? Carbon is the molecule of life. The carbon cycle that exists on this planet is very, very unique. Carbon is also it plays a big role in the creation of stars, and also its ability to create the next generation of stars. There's nothing more life generating and affirming and sustaining than the element of carbon. Why are you afraid of carbon? Well, because the control system is Abrahamic. They're not satanic pedophiles. They're Christians. Vast majority of them are Christians. The rest of them would be atheists who are modern atheism. Scientism is a form of fundamental Christianity, a secular form of that, the same fanatical evangelical drive, and some are Jews and some are Muslims, but mostly they're Christians, Abrahamics, right? So they've automatically got this program into their heads from the book of Revelation, 666, back of the beast, the carbon element, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, and this goes into their psyche. And it ferments there after many years, and eventually they will find a real life thing to hate based on the 666 thing, and that is carbon. Carbon must be reduced. Carbon is now a pollution. The molecule, just think how insane these people are. The molecule of life is the enemy of life. You could not make this as gaslighting, but it's also they're really gaslighting themselves too as well. And okay, so the carbon cycle is complete. It's such a unique thing on this planet. How basically it sustains, creates, and modifies and builds life upon this planet. Ultimately, the carbon molecule, the molecule of life, with its 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, carbon 12 anyway, is about abundance, rich forests, green fields, diversity of animals, mammals, birds, fish in the sea, reptiles, everything, flowers, fauna, fruits, vegetables, the lot, right? Where does the Abrahamic mind come from? A bleak, empty, lifeless desert. Now, although there's been great agricultural success in that part of the world in countries like Israel and Lebanon, it's highly dependent upon massive amounts of phosphates and very complex irrigation systems. But otherwise, in its natural form, at the time it was written, that the books of Revelation were written, and the biblical Bronze Age texts that became the Bible, Torah and Talmud and Quran, it was a barren wasteland of goat herders who couldn't grow anything. There was no life except to move from watering hole to keep your flock alive so they could sustain you. Now, so this is that mentality, that mind virus. It cannot relate to the abundance of Europe, the abundance of North America. It cannot relate to it because it's a spiritual system derived from the land of sand, goat and lizard. And that's about it. So this is why the woods of Europe terrified them and all had to be cleared. This is why the groves of the pagans were abomination to them. They worshipped in woods. We don't have deep woods in the desert land. This is an abomination. Cut down their woods. And this kind of thing. And that's where that all comes from. That's where all that comes from. So there's an alchemical element to all this as well. That we're being brought to this point. This is the union of the male and the female hermaphrodite, and that's being expressed by all this androgyny and all these like transgender fads in the mainstream media. The alchemical hermaphrodite is coming together, and all these things are showing us one thing only: that this is the revival of paganism. This is why people are becoming pagans all over Europe, all over America, and even in the Middle East, where there was a paganism before the Abrahamic thing. It's happening everywhere, and this is what is the pagan mind? It is part of the abundance of nature. It sees itself in a kind of an alchemical engagement with the abundance of nature. Whereas, animism is central to all pagan and most polytheistic traditions, whether it's setting your spiritual traditions by the abundance of the life of the earth, or the creation of new stars, or the circle of the planets in heaven. Carbon is an integral part of that. So the Abrahamic mind, who basically originates from a part of the world where there is nothing. I'm talking about back in the Bronze Age times, and all these texts arrived, not the people there today or anything like that, where the spiritual foundation, it may work for them in their bleakness, but it doesn't work for the rest of us. It's been imposed upon the rest of us. And the Abrahamic spell is now being broken, and people are returning back to polytheism and paganism and rejecting Christianity. In the West, it's happening at an unbelievable rate at the moment. And I'm very proud to say I probably played a little part in that. And this is what we're seeing, this rejection of the return of the pagan, the return of the native. This is why they're still in Australia converting people, the Aborigines. This is why they fear the carbon atom. This is why they fear the life cycle of the carbon molecule, the molecule of life. And this is what I'm starting to believe the 666 in the book of Revelations was, the return of the pagan world. And that is the great beast. And where do beasts live? In the wild.